Hello and welcome to another episode of the Grow My Salon Business podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and as always, it's great to have you here with us today. This is the podcast for the ambitious stylist and salon owner, no matter where you are. And if financial management is a weak spot for you in your business, then the good news is that that's where I can help you, because for a limited time, our online money course is now open for enrollment. Now, there is a cost involved in doing this course, but there's a much bigger cost in continuing to make the same mistakes. This is your opportunity to join us and get a financial education specifically for the salon owner. So to find out more, just visit growmysalonbusiness.com/course/money. I'll also put that link in the show notes of today's podcast, but I'm warning you to be quick because enrollment is only open for a few days. So at the very least, check out what it's all about at growmysalonbusiness.com/course/money to find out more. And if now is the right time for you to join us, then I will see you on the inside. So with that said, let's get on with today's show. I got an email the other day from a salon owner who said that the biggest challenge that they were having in business is how do you make apprentices profitable in as short a time as possible? Now that's a great question, and it's an issue that I know a lot of salon owners everywhere will grapple with. Before I go any further, I should just say that I don't know the salon owner who originally asked the question, and I don't know anything about his or her business, so nothing I say is directly related to them. It's more intended as being applicable to everyone who grapples with getting new junior team members productive and profitable as quickly as possible. Now, I've been doing this a long time, and I know that whether we're talking about apprentices or beauty school graduates, either way, getting them productive and profitable, it doesn't happen by chance. And what I mean by that is that if you're a salon owner asking the question and you're looking for a quick fix or a magic wand that will solve your problems, then think again, because I don't believe that exists. Opening a salon and employing people isn't easy. No one ever said it would be. And if you're going to do it, then you need to do it properly, or just don't do it at all. And instead, remain an employee working with someone else, or just work by yourself, because opening a salon and building a productive and profitable team doesn't happen by luck. It happens through hard work. So with that said, that's enough of my preaching for the moment. So back to the question, how do you make trainees or apprentices profitable quickly? Now, as soon as I read that question, one word came to mind, and that word is training. But in reality, training is just part of the solution. Now, it's obviously an important part, but it is only part of the solution. So today, I'm going to dig into that in more detail because, well, the answer to the question is a little bit like the proverbial can of worms, where as soon as you start talking about it, then one thing leads to another and then another. So let's just keep the question top of mind, but recognize that the answer is part of a bigger ecosystem. So what do I mean by ecosystem? Well, an ecosystem is where lots of things all work together in some way or other. And so if you change one of them, then it will have an impact on all of the other. And so the analogy is that when you have productive and profitable apprentices, it has a positive impact on everything else happening within the salon ecosystem. So where do you start? Well, let's start with why. Why are they asking the question? How do you make apprentices profitable in as short a time as possible? Let's face it, it's more expensive than ever to employ people. Minimum wages are increasing everywhere, and you simply can't afford to have people standing around. And are they asking the question in regards to, is it to get them profitable or is it to get them productive? As I said at the beginning, they are two different things. So let me just explain what I mean by that. If it's about getting them productive, meaning getting them busy working as an assistant, an apprentice, enabling the stylist to see more clients so that they're making an indirect contribution and enabling the salon to be more profitable. You see, just getting them more productive isn't necessarily that hard if it's in the role of helping, and I dare use that word, cleaning. Now, if, on the other hand, it's about getting them profitable, meaning that they're seeing their own clients and producing revenue that exceeds what it's costing to have them there, well, that's a slightly different question. And I think that's really what I'm going to focus on today. And so what I've done is I've broken that down into 4 different sections. Perhaps it should be more than 4, but I've got it down as 4 different sections. And the very first one is that it starts with recruitment. Meaning that when you're recruiting people and you're wanting to get them profitable as quickly as possible, it begins right from day one with recruiting them. Now, I always have this thing about recruitment in that when you're looking for people to join your team, what is it you're looking for? Well, what I'm looking for is attitude. I think that is the number one thing. Now, I don't make any secret of the fact that I've been doing this a long time, and it's easy when someone starts having these conversations to use that expression, okay, boomer. Well, yeah, I am a boomer, unashamedly. But, I think that sometimes each generation wants to come along and throw out everything that's come before it. And I'm definitely not saying when I was a boy, you had to do this and you had to do that, because absolutely no one cares. So I'm not taking that route. But I think that oftentimes there are young hairdressers coming into the industry today, whether it's in an apprenticeship or straight out of beauty school, where they don't have realistic expectations. So are they a realist? So what do I mean by that? Well, I think that sometimes a lot of people are set up to believe that it's easier than what it's going to be. So what are their expectations? What are they looking for in their career and their new job? Because remember, we're talking about assistants, apprentices, or people straight out of beauty school. What is it that they're looking for? Now, they will vary a lot. Let's be clear about that. Some people have a natural level of talent, potentially. Other people have had a lot more training and have developed their skill level a lot quicker than others. So to some degree, it really does depend on the individual and their people skills, etc., as to how quickly you're going to be able to get them productive and profitable members of your salon team. Now, I've constantly defended Gen Z on the podcast, and I'll continue to defend Gen Z because some of them are extraordinarily focused and hardworking. But like every generation, there's their fair share, and maybe perhaps there's even a bit more than their fair share of this generation that perhaps aren't as focused as hardworking and want things to be spoon-fed to them a little bit more, or at least assume that it's going to be easier than what it actually is. Maybe they've been sold a lie through social media and they want everything now. They expect everything now. Let's cut them a little bit of slack because they've been born into this world of instant gratification where you sort of can get everything now. But the reality is that you get churned out of beauty school or as an apprentice, and the reality is it takes time to master the skills that are required to be a successful behind the chair hairdresser. It just simply doesn't happen overnight. So how much time are we going to allow for that? Well, again, as I said, it depends a little bit on the individual. But the other thing we need to consider here is the balance that different people have. There's a lot of people that are Gen Z that want to hustle, that want to work hard, and they want to get through it and put in the hours and make it happen. Some people, I'm one of them, I love hard work and I love the hustle culture. I always have. I love what I do, and I don't mind putting in the long hours for the potential reward that comes with it. So let's just go back to this topic of recruitment. I think when you're recruiting these people either straight out of beauty school or people that are in their apprenticeship, is you need to explain the road ahead. So as I said, this sort of generational thing where people in my generation, they did have a very different work-life balance. They had a very different expectation of what was involved in becoming an apprentice and what that journey looked like. Now, This generation, they don't have those same expectations. As I said, it's not their fault. So explain what the road ahead looks like in terms of them becoming productive and profitable. And part of that then will take me into the second point. So the first point is really talking all about recruitment. The second point is where I want to then talk about training. And so part of that training thing is dovetailed into recruitment. So in other words, you need to be telling people when you're interviewing them what your training process is. And I think that this is where most salons fall short, because most salons everywhere in the world that I talk to, they will put all the blame on the schools, regardless of the country you live in and the culture that you have, as to whether you have private schools or whether you have government-run schools or whether you have apprenticeships or whatever it is. But either way, too many salon owners out there blaming the lack of ability of those new young people to generate revenue quickly, and they will blame the schools for that. And they'll say that the schools or colleges are not giving people the training that they need to be successful in a salon. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never thought that it was the school's job to do that. It's your job as the salon owner to do that. And in most cases, that's just simply not happening. In other words, if I go into most salons and I ask them, what is your technical and creative training program that you have for your team? Well, they'll look at me like I have two heads. And in most cases, they will say, well, when we take an apprentice or an assistant on, they will watch us and that they'll pick it up by observing. Well, do you know what? That's very old school. That's very out of date. And that simply doesn't cut it anymore. So if you're going to employ apprentices and you're expecting them to get productive, you need to be training them. You need to be developing the training system that is applicable to your business model and the services that you offer, so that you can get those people profitable as quickly as possible. So you need to be developing your own in-salon training program. And I would suggest that you have a training program that covers not just the technical and creative side of things, where you've itemized what are the haircuts that they need to learn before they can be on the floor doing clients. What are the color techniques that they need to have mastered before they can be on the floor doing clients. And that will vary from salon to salon. Some salons will have other services, whether we're talking about extensions or whether it's a salon that does a lot of texturizing, or whether it's a salon that is perhaps just a barbershop or a color specialist salon. So whatever your salon is what you need to develop a training program around that. And only you know, as the owner, what the services are that you offer that you need to get people trained up and really quickly so that you can get them profitable and on the floor as quick as possible. So that's the technical creative side, and that's obviously going to be a mixture of some one-to-one stuff that perhaps you're going to be doing with them, where you're going to work through a series of haircuts with them one-to-one, whether it's on a live model or a mannequin or a combination of the two, as well as the technical creative side of training so that they're profitable. There's also training for product knowledge. Now, in general, that's always available through the manufacturers. But then over and above that, there's another area of training, and that is the customer service training. So again, as the salon owner, only you know what the standards are and the needs and expectations are of your client base and your business model. So you need to develop a training program that is a fit for you and your client base. Okay, so where do we go from there? Well, I think a natural segue from talking about customer service is talking about communication skills. And do you know what? This is something that is largely forgotten. We sort of assume that people are going to pick certain things up as they go. And ultimately, this is why I developed one of my courses, the Super Stylist course, which is all about teaching people the communication skills that you need to succeed behind the chair and become a profitable stylist. And in so many cases, Salon owners will say, well, we don't really teach that. They've either got it or they haven't, which is rubbish, or they'll just pick it up over time, which, perhaps some of them will. But why wait if you can teach it? So what am I talking about here? Well, under the banner of communication skills, I would include things like good consultation skills. I would include things like talking about retail. I would include things like talking about the importance of rebooking and asking for referrals and building up a request clientele. And they're all the sort of things that I cover in my Super Stylist course, as I say, but it needs to be taught by someone. It can't just be ignored and you make the assumption that they will know what it is that they need to be doing because you do it just second nature because you've been perhaps doing it for years. Well, you can't expect them to do it without being taught how to do those things, just like they need to be taught how to do a particular haircut or a color. So then on the back end of communication skills, there is training in terms of life skills. So what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of it is just what you might refer to as simple common sense. So what do I mean by simple common sense? Well, that can be things as simple as escorting clients around the salon, taking a client's coat, hanging it up, helping them on with a gown or a robe, or how to cape somebody up, or what to say to clients and what not to say. What are the subjects that you should talk about and perhaps shouldn't talk about. One of the things that is a huge advantage about the world we live in now is that as well as the face-to-face training, there's the opportunity to embrace technology. And let's face it, 20 years ago, this stuff didn't exist. So there is a lot of technology now, and in many cases it's free, that enables you to draw on those resources so that you can fast track people's education. It doesn't all rely on you having to stand there by their side and take them through, a haircut or a color step by step. People today, whether you like it or not, do not want to be a cleaner. They want to be a stylist. So if you want cleaners in your salon, then employ cleaners. Now, you can sort of be that person that says, well, when I was a boy, we had to do this. It's all just part of being an apprentice. Well, the reality is that no one wants to know about when I was a boy. It's just totally irrelevant. Today's learner does not want to be full-time folding towels, sweeping the floor, doing the laundry, and then having to stand there and watch in the expectation that they're going to learn really how to do something. Because the reality is they're actually not learning that much. So if you want someone to be a cleaner, then employ full-time cleaners. If you want someone to be a stylist, then employ someone who is going to be a trainee stylist or colorist, etc., and employ separate people to do the cleaners. Now, you have to find the balance with this because we're all in this together and we all have a responsibility to do certain jobs. And in many salons, that will involve a certain amount of cleaning, meaning keeping the place orderly. So I don't want some new trainee stylist getting all uppity about the fact that they have to grab a broom and sweep the floor, or mop the staff room floor at the end of the day, or wipe down the backwashers, or whatever it is, because I expect everyone to be doing that. But it's about finding that balance. I used to work in a salon years ago, and I'll never forget the sign on the wall. It said, "Clean up as you go, your mum doesn't work here." Now in this particular salon, there were no apprentices. It was everyone's role to clean up as they went. So you need to create a training program. Now that training program, as I said, needs to be a system that grows people. And that system needs to be a system that is focused on the skills that you need people to have, that you need people to master in your salon with your clients. As I've mentioned, that might be just cutting men's hair, it might be cutting men's and women's hair, it might be coloring, it might be dressing hair, it might be extensions, it might be texturizing, it can be all sorts of things. So if I'm a salon owner listening to this, I would get out a pen and paper if I didn't have a technical and creative training program. I'd get out a blank sheet of paper and I'd ask myself that question. I'd say, well, what do I need them to be doing? Remember, let's go back to the original question. How do I get apprentices profitable as quickly as possible? Well, I would go back to that original question. I'd say, okay, what do I need to be training them in month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4? So what are the things that you want them to have mastered within the first 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks? So you need to map out what that looks like with the various skills that you need them to have mastered. And you need to turn that into a written down system. Some of them are going to grasp it and get it really quickly, and some of them it's going to take longer. Obviously, the ones that grasp it really quickly, providing all other things being equal, then they're going to be a valuable contribution quicker, perhaps, than the other ones. Some people do take longer to learn anything, and that's just normal, okay? So part of that training also needs to be about letting them experience success. So what do I mean by let them experience success? It's good that they get their hands in there quickly. It's good that they know where they will be at each stage. So where will I be at the end of month 1? Where will I be at the end of month 3? Where will I be at the end of month 6? What were the skills that you would have taught me in that time frame? What can you expect from them and what they can expect from you? And here's what's important as well. Make it fun. Make it exciting, make it challenging, but it's not the army. We want them to be inspired to learn. And, mix it up with other people taking the training so that they learn different ways of doing things with different people. And a lot of people won't necessarily like this, but I think you also need to have assessments. In other words, if you're going to set down these are the haircuts you need to learn before you can go on the floor. These are the color techniques you need to learn before you need to go on the floor. Well, you need to have a test. You need to have an assessment at each stage before you are ready to pass them to go on to the next stage. Because the reality is, are your clients ready for them? And are they really ready for your clients? Because a lot of them think they're ready for your clients, but what they think and what those clients might think can be two very different things. And here's the thing. They're your clients that you're giving them. So you don't want to be giving them to your clients if you know that right from the get-go that they don't have the skill and the ability to be able to do what they need to do. Okay, so let's move on into my number 3. And I've already touched on this. My number 3 was get their hands and hair as soon as possible. So what does that mean? Well, you might put them on the floor in stages. Now, a lot of salons will do things like they'll have a level 1 system, a tiered pricing system. So the client is very aware that that person at level 1 or junior stylist or whatever you want to call them, graduate stylist, new stylist, different terminology for different salons is fine. But the client is then aware that that person is not necessarily in training, but they don't have the same degree of experience. So I think it's important that they get their hands and hair as soon as possible. So I would create a system that enabled them to be taking clients. Now it's up to you to decide what sort of clients they are. I know salons that get them just doing men's hair to start with, or where they get them just putting on treatments, toners, semi-permanent colors to start with. And then they add on layer upon layer after that of different techniques that they master as they go. But do not hold them back from doing clients for 2 years and think that don't even think they're still going to be there. Okay, they need to be fast-tracked. They need to get their hands in here so that they're motivated and excited about it. So that then takes me to number 4. And number 4 is all about you, because number 4 is all about leadership and management. So you need to create a culture of learning. You need to create a culture of growth. You need to create a culture where you are known for putting in the hard work of developing people, but that if they don't measure up, then you manage them out of the business. You need to be known for the training that you give and for how you produce great opportunities or create great opportunities for ambitious young hairdressers to get behind the chair, develop a clientele, and to grow quickly, which is in their interest and it's in your interest. But if you're one of those salons where you've got people, and there's still plenty of people in salons all around the world like this, who have been in there for 3 or 4 years and they still are not doing clients, well, don't blame the stylist. That is your fault. That is the fault of leadership and management, because you haven't either put the systems in place to train them to get them productive at the beginning and then followed through with it consistently, or alternatively, if you recognize that they weren't going to make it, you failed to manage them out of the business. Either way, the buck stops with you. So be known for the training that you give, and for how you produce great opportunities for ambitious stylists that are prepared to put the work in and grow. And if you do all of the stuff that we've talked about on this episode, there are still no guarantees that you'll have a salon full of productive and profitable apprentices and stylists, but I can guarantee that you're far more likely to than if you didn't put in the hard work. So to sum up the 4 points that we've covered, number 1 was recruit the right people, and recruit based on attitude. You train for skill, but recruit based on attitude. Number 2 is training. So training in every area, from the technical and creative to the communication and life skills, and stop waiting for someone else to do it for you. If you're not prepared to do it, then outsource it to someone else who comes in to do your training. Do not wait for the schools and the colleges to do it. It's up to you to get your people ready to be on the floor servicing the clients that you have with the services and the standards that you expect them to get. Number 3 is get their hands in here as soon as possible and stop telling people about how it was when you were a boy or girl, because no one cares. That was then, and this is now. And number 4, be the leader and manager that you wished that you'd had. So on that note, we need to start wrapping up this episode of the podcast. And as I said at the top of this episode, the good news is that we have opened our money course for enrollment, but it is only open for a limited time. As I said, there's a cost involved in doing the course, but there's a much bigger cost in continuing to make the same mistakes. This is your opportunity to join us and get a financial education specifically for salon owners. So to find out more, visit growmysalonbusiness.com/course/money. And I'll also put that link in the show notes of today's podcast. And if now's the right time for you to join us, I will see you on the inside. Until then, have a great week, and that's bye for now.